Hello and welcome back to another episode of Lewwe Hear From Doc, where we dive into conversations that matter. I'm your host, Amanda Japal, and joining me again is Dr. Keith Mitchell. Now, Dr. Mitchell has been the MP for St. George Northwest for over 41 years and Prime Minister for 23 years. So today, we'll take a look at the state of our nation, from cost of living to economy to infrastructure to the lack of opportunities for our youths. We'll explore important topics from his unique perspective. So, Dr. Mitchell, 41 years is no easy thing. How has that journey been for you? What has shaped your understanding of leadership and public service in Grenada?
Well, from the standpoint of the constituency representation, of course, um, I started in 1984, and of course, I had the endorsement of the people of Northwest St. George's, where I grew up literally as from childhood, and of course had the endorsement. I got 60% of the votes. The people and the main opposition at the time was the Grenada United Labour Party, led by Sir Martha Gary. And of course, I think because of my involvement in sports as captain of the cricket team in Happy Hill, which was one of the leading cricket club in the country, and of course, captain of Grenada's cricket team and Winter Island cricket that I played. I was a household name in the sporting community in the country, and because of my background in education, I'm teaching at the Presentation College after I left, successfully completing my A-level examinations in mathematics, chemistry, and physics. I taught a lot of students all over the country. And then I went to St. John's Christian Secondary and taught. And because of that connection, and I got very strong support from the constituency and from people around the country. So it was not surprising that I won that seat in 1984. But the party split up in three ways. We had the birth of the National Democratic Congress, which was led by George Brazan initially, and who was part of the team that I ran with in 1984. And then, of course, I had the dispute with Hubbard Blaze, the leader, who fired me as a member of his cabinet and so on, and formed his own party called TNP. So we had a three-way race the next time, well, four-way race. We had the next election in 1990. You had the NDC, the NNP that I led. You had the TNP led by Hubbard. Well, Hubbard Blaze died subsequently, so Ben Jones led the TNP, and George Brazan led the NDC, and of course the GLP continued as a viable organization. But with all that split of the votes, I still got 70% of the votes in the next election. So, which was a clear indication that I gained support, although I lost some from those who left and formed their own organization. I gained tremendous support from the base of the GLP. So that connection and service, and I think a lot of it has to be my relationship and family relationship with the people of Northwest. Was born in Brazil, and my grandmother was a very popular fish vendor. And my mom served as a baker in the community, and also involved in helping my father at the cane mill in Happy Hill at the time. And as a combination of family connection and my relationship with people through sports and other community and teaching and so on, I thought that that gained me that relationship with the community of Northwest St. George's, particularly young people. I got some very strong support from the young, even family homes that were known to be more GLP leaning. All the young people in those homes supported me because, as I said, of my connection with the community as a whole. And I must say that although I did not, of course, the election in 1990, I only got 70%, so there are 30% votes against me. But I must say, despite the fact that people did not vote for me, I didn't have any hostility because my relationship with people, and that's why I maintain for the young politicians that even if your party is does not get the votes of certain people in your community, you should not single them out for victimization, because if you treat them well, they would also be respectful. Even if they don't vote for you, they would not be hostile, and you don't need hostility. Um, if you could have the opponent being friendly to you, that's a positive thing for you. And then your supporters will also be supported. But then you have a lot that has a lot to do with your relationship, particularly when you get into government and as representative in my constituency, and I became Minister of Works. I had a strong relationship with everyone in the community. No one could say that because of their they're not supporting me politically, that they were victimized, and they felt that I refused to help them when they came to me or came to peoples that work with me, and they were treated badly. They couldn't say that because that was not my approach to politics and people. So I think overall, I would say that servicing as a representative, stay in touch with your people. That's my advice to young politicians. No matter what, always find some time to relate to your constituency and your community as a whole. You could be busy as what in government, but don't forget, without the votes of the people in the constituency, you will not be elected and be able to be in the service or being a minister of government, as I was in 1984 to 1990. So I think that message must be clear. And I said, do not single out people for victimization. Do not base your relationship with people or services that you bring to people based on who voted for you and who did not vote for you. Everyone has a right to the benefits and services that a government has in place in the country as a whole. And that's my fundamental philosophy, and that has stuck with me consistently over the years. So whether in government or in opposition, when I'm out in opposition, I don't see a difference in people. I know people serve on government sometimes when the party lose, they have difficulties in going around in their own communities because of the way they treated people. But I never had a problem, whether in government, whether in opposition. I always get the warmth and friendliness from the people in the community and the people in the country as a whole.
What key changes in Grenada's political, economic, and social landscape stand out to you for these 40 years?
Well, I think for one, I think one of the key things was the fact that the infrastructural development, in fact, I think my emergence as um, a potential leadership, a personal leadership or possible leadership in the country had a lot to do with the rapid transformation of infrastructural development in the country. So when I heard the president leader of the country say nothing happened in Grenada since 1983, I had to laugh. The telephone he's using, the electricity that he uses in his house, and the services of water and the roads that he drive have a lot to do with the massive transformation of infrastructural activities during the period 1984 to 1990. And anyone who were alive at the time, and of course present here today, could tell you that the enormous amount of services, villages that never had electricity received it. So I think the massive transformation of infrastructure must have been the major difference between early period, I would say, of my period of service in government. So I would say that what I would say the key to to what you say major transformation in the country has to do with infrastructural development. Well, clearly in education, because of course I have a serious educational background, and I know without a solid education I would not be where I am today. And therefore I placed a lot of value in supporting educational activities and involving myself with people in my community, a lot of the schools in my community and around the country as a whole. But you're talking about Northwest St. George's, a major transformation in the physical development state of the schools in the country and the education of the people in the country as a whole, because I saw this as extremely important. And of course, health, as you know, I'm a person very, very um, I'm very keen on one taking care of the health, because without health, you're not going to be able to be successful in most of the things. And I think clearly also the question of the transformation of the economy of the country, and investing in those basics infrastructure, and then having the vision and initiative to come up with developmental activities that will create jobs and opportunity in the country, and of course and making sure that the social services available for people who may not be able to help themselves. That's a responsibility of the government. So I would say these are some of the key things. I would say major transformation. So anyone who mouths off that nothing happened in Grenada since 1983 clearly either was not alive, or then, or so small they did not know, and they listened to other people propaganda. And I would ask them to just research what happened in Grenada then, and as opposed to what's happening where the country's at now.
You mentioned your mom a short while ago that she was a baker, but she has just turned 103. How has your family influenced your approach to public service and decision making over years?
Well, one thing my mom always taught us to be honest in dealing with people. I'm sure it was my mom and father really, but she was really the head of household, because he was out working a lot of the time. She was the one taking care, cooking, providing the basic things and guidance and to the family. And of course, as I said before, she had several jobs. She had to be the cook. She had to be the washer, washing our clothes. And those days, a lot of people don't know this presentation college that I was going to at secondary school. It was pure white. Could you imagine a young boy very difficult to control young boys at 12 and 13 and 14 and 15, and putting a white clothes on them, they're going to be dirty every day. So she had to be literally washing up every day. And so she had to be doing that. And then, of course, she had to provide some source of economic activity for the family. So she had an oven and baked, and we had to go out and sell bread in the morning and so on. So she was a baker, the washer, the cook. And of course, my father was involved in the cane mill that we had, that his great grandfather and great great grandfather had, and he took over that mill that was grinding the sugar cane. She had to be in the mill, in the cane, in the mill, and different aspects of the services of the distribution of that cane service. She also had to be there helping and cooking to help the people. So she had several professions. And then she had to go in the market on the weekend, and we had to join her sometimes, walking from sometimes Happy Hill to St. George's with the goods to go to the market to sell. So that's why I've always had a very soft feeling for a lot of the vendors in the fish market, because of my grandmother being there and having selling fish as for livelihood. And of course, the market with my mother had to be there on weekends, and we had to be there with her, helping her. So that sort of background of your life and the community work that you and made you have an appreciation for people involved in the people, the lower strata, who had to struggle for a livelihood and for serious opportunities in life. And that's why that has really formulated my whole approach to people, to politics, to everything that I do. I tend to empathize. Um, I have a sense of strong feeling for those persons of the lower strata. I kind of love almost everyone, but I believe government has a fundamental responsibility to single out those who need government the most. to do what you can to help them, because everyone in the society deserves to have some help in some ways.
Speaking of this, Doc, many Grenadians feel the impact of changes in the cost of living. From your perspective, how would you describe the economic pressures people are facing today?
It's very, very severe. I can't say, and to be honest, there was ever a time you would say some people don't complain about cost of goods, but this is the worst. We have seen it. And there are reasons for this. And clearly, even when things may be tough and you don't necessarily have the savings to cope, but there may be some opportunities on a livelihood and so on. But there isn't. What goes along with the problems of cost of goods is the fact that money is not available. So there is not opportunity to earn livelihood and so on. I think that is, so there is a big difference today that I've ever seen it in terms of the cry of the people. And I don't know if those in government not hearing the cry, that they have no feelings for what the people are going through. But it's a very serious issue faced for the mass of the population out there, particularly the poor and vulnerable people in the society, having to cope with the cost of living. And because they do need services like everybody else, and they want opportunities for their family and for the kids and for the society as a whole. So it's a very troubling thing, and I would say that something. And the sad thing is that nothing has been said by the present government about this. We had situation before when we were in government where people complain about prices, and we took steps, an initiative to be able to show people that we were listening and we are hearing, and therefore we took steps to deal with cost of, whether it's the area of electricity, whether it's in the area of water, whether it's the area of the telephone system that we had government controlled and so on. We did things to be able to aid to ease the pain that people are feeling. But this government today has done literally nothing. All they have done is literally mismanage the resources of the country and continue to just believe that they have a right to do what they're doing, and no one has a right to speak or say something different than about what is going on in the country compared to what they believe is taking place.
Dr. Mitchell, you mentioned infrastructure. Infrastructure is often cited as the backbone of development. Looking at the roads, public spaces, and utilities, how do you see the condition of Grenada's infrastructure affecting the day-to-day experiences of our citizens?
Well, I think to me, the worst aspect of what is taking place is the state of our roads. You know, when I returned home in 1984 after spending 13 years abroad, it was like, and there was a calypso, and I think I mentioned before that sang a tune like, Road in the Hole. it's Soca Boca, I remember that well. And it was bad, extremely bad, because the PRG appeared to spend very little time on dealing with infrastructure development in the country. So the road situation around the country is bad. And I think it must be said that during the period of NMP time, as I mentioned earlier on, that we spent enormous amount in trying to correct that image, and there were improvements, serious improvements in the roads of the country. But today you're seeing there's some big holes emerging, even in roads that the government spent millions of dollars, they claim, in fixing. The big holes are emerging already, as if I don't know. And some people might want to blame contractors. Contractors cannot be blamed, because the contractors are given amount of a contract to do certain things, and the government hasn't supposed to have supervision to ensure that the contractor meets its responsibility before he receives payment at certain stages. So to blame the contractor, it would be not wise. The contractors, I see the government has to take fundamental responsibility for what emerging as mismanagement of the resources of the country as a whole. So I think that is a fundamental the problem I see emerging, the question of the changes of infrastructure and what is taking place in that area as a whole. Because, as I mentioned earlier on, infrastructure is such a fundamental aspect of development. Without serious communication, how are you going to implement any serious program for development in the country? Without roads, how are you going to get to the services that you need and for services to reach you? And for the growth of and development of the food security in the country, roads are necessary. And how do you survive without water? And so on. So all these are so much fundamental and basic things, and electricity. And I mentioned before to you when I going to secondary school in the early period, had to be studying under Masanto and sometimes kerosene lamp and so on until later on when electricity was brought to the community, then we were able to get study on the electricity lights. So these are fundamental. The infrastructure in a country is so fundamental to development. We cannot play that down in any serious way.
And Dr. Mitchell, cleanliness and upkeep of our roadways affect daily life and national pride. From your perspective, how important is civic responsibility in supporting these
I
efforts?
don't think it's one has to hide to say this, but this is the worst we've seen in terms of the bushes on the side of the roads in the country. Everywhere you go, you travel, you see the bushes are higher than your height. So, I mean, and what people don't realize, yes, we spent enormous amount in providing road gangs, and therefore that provided serious opportunities for the poor people to earn a livelihood and so on. And that had some serious benefits for the country as a whole. But there are a more important aspect to this. The question of the security of the country. You're driving on the road and you make a corner and the bushes, that's why you can't see. So there can easily be more accidents in the country. And some of the drivers, sometimes they take corners when speeds beyond what they should be taking. So there's a risk of security and the question of health. With the drains not being appropriately clean and the bushes are high and blocking the roads, you can have more mosquito environment created, and the health of the population is involved. So it is when you deal with the bushing and making sure the roads are cleaned, you are looking at one, economic, because you're providing opportunities for the most vulnerable people in the society. You're also looking at the health, as I just mentioned, and the security aspect. The securing the lives of the people from accidents and so on is a critical component of our own development.
Youth programs have historically been important for shaping future leaders. What are your reflections on the absence of such programs today, and what impact does that have on Grenada's young people?
Well, clearly, we understood that despite the fact that we didn't have the resources that the present government was left with, that we had to find ways to create opportunities. And I don't need to repeat all the programs that we had for young people at all levels. Whereas Imani, where you bring in young people and provide them skills on the job training programs at various levels, whether it's businesses, whether it's in different companies outside or within the government service, where they learn skills so they'll be able to be employable later. We were preparing young people for these, and that's why we had so many of these programs. The Boys on the Block was given opportunities and so on. But with that, all these things vanished under this present government. What is happening now? You just drive around the streets and it's sad in a way. And you see blocks of young people, all they're doing is playing cards or dominoes, and if there was just entertainment, it must like gambling. And and then you might say, well, what are they doing there and so on. But if they have nothing available for them, they have to find some ways of engagement and socializing, and that's what's available right now. So it's doing a lot of damage to the psychic of the young people in the country, and would have profound effect if it's not stopped now. Profound effect on the society as a whole, and you're seeing it emerging already in the country, and that troubles me as someone who cares about the people of the country as a whole, and watching how things are deteriorating among the young population in the country, and that's why you find a lot of young people seem losing interest in what's taking place, and that's why it's difficult to go and talk to them about anything related to politics or anything, because they have such like little confidence in based on all the promises that were made, and then they see that it all dashed to pieces, and no one seemed to want to hold a hand up to help them, and it's a troubling thing that is taking place in our country at this time.
Reflecting on NNP's long-standing stability, what do you believe are the key factors that sustain a party and government over decades?
I think your relationship with the people, as I mentioned earlier on, like a representative in your constituency, you have to be in touch.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able to solve all the problems. And if you're honest with the people and be open with them, they will understand. On the other hand, also, I think being available, give them the opportunity to feel that you care. And therefore they would be able to understand, well, look, not everything that they want that they can receive. I think that must be a key factor for the longevity of the NNP during the period that we served. I mean, winning 6 general elections in a period is not an easy thing, and having 3 consecutive 15-seat victory is a feat that has not been repeated anywhere, and it's unlikely to be repeated easily. So I think relationship with people, the care and empathy that you show, the love for people, the understanding that you can't solve all problems, and that you have to be honest and open with the people that you're involved in. That's to be fundamental criteria for the success of the new national party over the period. And it's significant. Even when they get tired, like anything else in life, people get tired of almost everything in life. After a time, they want change. And and you have to understand and appreciate that you notice every time they made a decision to make a change in government, and they put the NDC in government, it's one term. They regret it after 2 years very quickly, because they give them a honeymoon period. And after the honeymoon is over, all the promises that were made and the lies that were told to them, they start coming to light. And I feel that this period of this NDC is far worse than the period NDC 1990 to 95 under Nicholas Braffett and George Brezan's leadership, and the NDC of 2008, 2013 under Tillman Thomas. This one under the new leader is by far the worst in terms of the lack of communication, lack of empathy, lack of love, lack of interest in people. I've never seen a collective group of persons that represent a country more consumed with themselves and what they get than what they bring to the people of the country. I've never seen it so bad. I can't say NNP was perfect. Clearly not. We had weaknesses too. But the extent of what is taking place is quite frightening, and the lack of feelings, the lack of care, the lack of empathy is so strong. It's quite frightening.
Having been Prime Minister for 23 years, what are the moments or policies you're most proud of in shaping this country?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think the opportunities to transform the infrastructure of the country was clearly must be a highlight. I would also say the 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 interest we shown in the health of the population and the things that we did to improve the healthcare system in the country was also a positive, and of course, educational development. That's our fundamental philosophy was you need a healthy, educated, and productive population. That was our simple philosophy of the New National Party, because you must have health, you must be educated because you want knowledge, and then you have to have plans for development, and that means programs and projects that can bring productive activity and generate revenue so that you have the kind of income coming into the country that can help you to govern and take initiative to do things that are necessary in the country as a whole. So I would say that these were key factors going forward.
You mentioned planning. So leadership requires balancing short-term and long-term vision. What insights have you gained about planning for both the present and the future? What can you tell us about that?
Well, if you have to take into consideration where the country was, where you have it today, and you must also be thinking of the future. If you are serious, you can't just be thinking of today, and that's why I find it difficult to understand how we could have left $500 million in cash, and that's not the resources, the monthly resources we receive from inland revenue, from customs, and from other taxes and other grants and loans that we take to help us to govern the country, which is separate. So that means you had that resources there to do developmental activities that create jobs in adding to what we already had in place. And I find it very strange that you have not seen that sort of activity taking place in the country. And it tells me something about the lack of, as I mentioned earlier on, the lack of interest that is shown by those that are governing the country at this particular time.
Doc, we're about to wrap up. This week is Thanksgiving. In just a few words, just tell us, what are you thankful for?
Well, thankful for where we have come from, where we were 1983 with the upheaval, the political upheaval of the country, and the sort of state of the country at the time. I'm thankful the fact that we are move forward as a country as a whole. I'm thankful that the relationship we've developed with our CARICOM brothers and sisters have been a positive one. I'm also thankful that we have been able to have the services that can help people as we continue to go forward. But of course, I'm thankful for the community life that we have, the association that we see continuing to grow, the development of the country where we are. And hopefully we can see with the coming election, we hope we can see a change in government where the NNP can be back in office to continue to provide the kind of development that we were accustomed to from 1984 onwards.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mitchell. And guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.